Growing up, when I was little, we used to go to Mexico every summer. We are from the state of Coahuila, Mexico. My grandparents used to own a plot of land. Technically, they still own it, but they've passed away a few years ago. And so my aunts and uncles still live there. There's about 5 houses on that plot of land, their main house, and then the other 4 houses. My family's land is actually built on top of a cemetery. And so there's always been different stories of things that they've seen, things that have happened. My dad owned the house that was located nearest to where, this cemetery is. They would always hear banging on the walls. My mom, who is a non believer of anything paranormal, one time stayed there and she was woken up in the middle of the night with banging all on the walls. And it wasn't just on one, it was just all over the house, just banging all over the house. During breakfast time with everybody around, she's like, yeah, I didn't get good sleep last night because there was banging on the walls. Maybe something happened with the neighbor and she was using the hammer. And they're like, no, that's actually very common in that house. As a matter of fact, my other uncle who lives a house over has also heard those bangings. And so he came out in the middle of the night to see who was, causing chaos out there. He brought some type of weapon out with him just to make sure he had, something to protect himself with, because he really thought it was a person. And he said he went all around that house and did not find anybody there. My grandma had gone to a flea market out in Mexico, and she bought a dresser with an attached mirror to it at this flea market intended for my uncle. She took it to my uncle's house. They had it set up. Some time passed by. One night, my uncle was asleep and something woke him up. He felt this uneasy feeling, like somebody was just looking at him. He woke up and he was kind of scanning the room. It's dark. He can't really see anything. He's still half asleep. And in the corner of the room, he sees a little boy who's about anywhere from 8 to 10 years old. He's just looking at him. And he tries to call out to him to get his attention. Little boy is not moving. He's not doing anything other than just staring at my uncle. So my uncle decides to grab like his cover or a pillow to throw at him to, get a reaction out of this little boy to see like, what are you doing in my room? The little boy jumps from where he was to the dresser and disappears into the mirror. Fast forward maybe the next summer, my adult cousin and her son, who was at the time around that same age, went to Mexico to visit for the summertime. We all know we all go back home to visit for vacation. My uncle lends her his room so she could sleep in there with her kid. In the middle of the night, at around the same time, her little boy starts shaking her. Mommy, 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 wake up. There's a little boy. Oh, mijo, go to sleep, go to sleep. You're dreaming. There's nothing there. Mommy, mommy, there's a little boy and he's smiling at me and his teeth are ugly. No, mijo, there's nothing there. Go back to sleep. Finally, he gives up and he goes back to sleep. During breakfast the next morning, my cousin is complaining of how tired she is because her little boy didn't let her sleep. And they're telling this story to my uncle, whose, house that belongs to, and my grandma. And so my uncle and my grandma kind of just stare at each other because they know what happened to him. She goes on to tell them that, yeah, he kept trying to wake me up, that there was a little boy in the room and that the little boy was smiling at him. And my uncle is like, well, that kind of happened to me too. He proceeds to tell her his story. Needless to say, my cousin and her son did not sleep there the following night. That same dresser and mirror ends up in the possession of an aunt of mine here in the United States. My aunt, very superstitious, she had gone to see like a witch doctor. At this time, the mirror and the dresser are put away in the garage. She knows the story of this mirror. Why she has possession of this mirror, I don't know, even though she knows the story. Anyway, she goes and sees a witch doctor for unrelated reasons. And this witch doctor gives her this little trinket, which is like a little pillow, a green one and a red one. One was intended for like luck and the other one was intended for money. And she always carried these little pillows with her in her purse. One day she was rummaging through her purse and she notices that those pillows are gone. At the time, my aunt had, teenage sons. And so she kind of confronted them about it and was like, hey, you guys were going through my purse. My little pillows are gone. Why were you guys going through my purse? They all deny. They're like, no, Mom, it wasn't us. We didn't do anything like that. They end up finding those pillows by the mirror in the garage. And no idea how they got there. Once that happened to her specifically, that's when they're like, okay, no, we need to get rid of this mirror. Something is wrong with this mirror. We got it at a flea market. It's in Mexico. So something or somebody must have done something to this mirror that, would have caused like this little boy to get stuck in there. And so ultimately that's what led to their decision to get rid of that mirror. Everything stopped. Like there was no other occurrences with a little boy or anything going missing after they broke it, essentially. We've always been scared that land was built over a cemetery, because there's been other like small occurrences that have happened, but I think that's the creepiest one.
This took place May of 2015. Me and my husband were going to New Orleans for the first time. We have a timeshare thing, so we were able to get a 2-story room. We were going to be there for 2 whole weeks. For whatever reason, they would not let us stay in the same room for both weeks. We had to stay in one room for 1 week, and then they had to check us out and put us in another room for the second week. This happened the last Friday that we were there on the first week, if that makes sense. When checking into the room, at first you're looking at it and it's so cool. It totally looked like what you would think New Orleans would look like. It had like brick wall. There was weird kind of paintings in there. And I remember even walking in there, I was taking pictures and showing a video and everything, walking throughout everything. I remember walking upstairs and getting like I don't know about this. I brushed it off because we were in New Orleans for the first time. I was super excited. There was a second room in there too. I just didn't like it. I don't want to be in here by myself type thing. The last night that we were there in the first room, I knew that I was dreaming because I remember we were in the master bedroom. Like I said, this was like a 2-story room. I remember sitting up in my bed and I kept hearing things. I felt like it was cabinets opening and closings, and doors opening and closing, opening, closing. I knew no one was in our room. It was just me and my husband. I knew my husband was in the bathroom. I don't know how I knew that, but I knew that my husband was in the bathroom. I was sitting in bed and I asked, "Hey, are you not hearing this?" When I said that, I felt something pull my leg. I freaked out. All of a sudden, I felt like someone grabbed both my ankles and pulled me down. When they pulled my ankles down, I lay flat on my back on my bed. When I woke up, I couldn't move. I couldn't move, like, at all. The only thing I could move was my eyelids. I was like, what is going on? I was in the exact same room where we were sleeping in. So the first dream took place in the room. When I woke up and couldn't move, I knew I was in the room. And I knew I could see my husband laying right next to me in arm's length. All of a sudden, I remember two different things or entities. I don't know what they were, but I felt one hand on one shoulder and another hand on my other shoulder. They were holding me down. It wasn't hard, but I could feel them hold me down. The only thing I can remember is them looking like the Monet painting of the screaming person. All I saw was they were like misty, and all I saw was like two eye sockets and a long face. I couldn't move anything but my eyelids. For the life of me, I just wanted for him to wake me up because he was right next to me in bed. All of a sudden, I hear both of those entities in my voice, in my own voice. I felt like they were making fun of me. I felt like they were mocking me, like, you can't talk, you can't talk. I could feel myself wanting to cry. I just closed my eyes. I was praying to Jesus. I was praying to God, Holy Spirit. I was praying to everybody. My dad had passed 3 years prior, so I even called out to my dad, like, "Dad, if you can hear me, please." I had called out even to my grandfather, my paternal grandfather, who had died in 2012. I was like, "Please help me, please." As soon as I called out to my grandfather, within maybe 10 seconds, I woke up. I was able to wake up. I immediately woke up my husband and I was like, "I just had a bad dream." I didn't want to tell him everything because I knew he was dead asleep. So he just comforted me. But I ended up praying for the next 20 minutes and just thanking God that I was able to wake up from that dream. That was the scariest thing that I ever experienced. I ended up telling my mom at least a year later. She freaked out. She was like, "What? Oh my God, I can't believe that happened to you." She totally believed me though. She's like, "I'm sorry that happened to you." I remember the resort that we were staying at was called the Quarter House. It was built in 1830. I know it was really old, and I thought that was really cool because I was like, "Oh my God, we're staying in a fairly old building." I love history of stuff, but I did not think that that was going to happen. I just thought it was cool because it was really old. If I would have known it was haunted, I would not stay because I'm like such a scaredy cat. Even to this day, I have dreams within dreams, but they're not like that where I wake up like sleep paralysis. But I've had dreams within dreams.
This happened to me 19 or 20 years ago. I'm 38 years old. I come from a Hispanic family, and we tend to be friends with our cousins because we have so many of them. I would hang out with a girl cousin of mine very often. One day she invited me over. Her mom had got a new place. I hadn't been there. I took a bus across town to get to this address. When I got there, my cousin was there with her older sister. Right away, they're like, "Hey, glad you're here. We were just about to go to the store. Do you want to go with us?" I was done with the California heat, and I was like, "No, I'll stay here." And she says, "Great." My daughter, she's asleep. Keep an eye on her. We're just going to go to the corner convenience store when we be back. They leave, and I stay there watching TV. As soon as they leave, the door closed. The little girl sits up and starts asking me over and over again, "Where's my mommy at? Where's my mommy at?" I would answer her every time. It's almost as if she just didn't hear me speaking to her and would continue to ask. After a while, I just figured I'm just going to watch TV, sit here. Little girl's still asking me the same questions. It could have been 15 or 20 minutes. I hear the metal door. It swings open, makes that sound that you hear on these doors. Then I can hear the wooden door swing open. Then I hear my cousin. She's laughing as if they're joking. She says, "Ha, Joanna." I hear what sounds like a plastic bag landing on a wooden table. That exact sound you hear of a cheap corner store bag. I look at the little girl and I respond to her, "Your mom's home." I walk into the kitchen. There's absolutely nobody there. The doors are closed. Everything's closed. There's nothing there. I walk right back to the room thinking, what did I hear? What's going on? The little girl's still sitting there, but now she's staring at me. She starts asking me all over again where her mommy's at. She's probably asked me 15, 20 times where her mom's at in the same tone over and over again. A few minutes later, I hear the wooden door rubbing across the floor. I hear my cousin again laughing, and I hear her say, "Ah, effing Joanna." I hear the bag with the soda hit the table. I'm too scared to get up. I sit there for a minute. I'm not saying anything to the little girl. She's still asking me for her mother. All of a sudden, my cousin pops her head around the corner. I jump up, run to the kitchen, and I tell her, "I heard that you guys came, but you weren't here." Both my cousin and her older sister are just staring at me like it's not a big deal. After I tell them what happens to me, they tell me, "When my mother gets home, we want you to tell her what happened to you." An hour or two pass, my aunt gets home, and she's not surprised. She starts telling me that when she first moved into that house, my aunt at that time, she was a single mother. When they first moved into that house, she would constantly catch her daughter in her closet, going through the boxes, making a mess. My aunt, getting tired of telling her to get out of the closet, she tells her, "What are you doing in there? Why do you keep going in my closet, and what are you searching for?" Her daughter looked at her and told her, "The little girl is telling me that there's toys in here. That's why I'm in here." She tells me she spoke to the owner. She asked him, "There's been weird things happening in this house. Has anybody ever said anything or told you anything?" The owner himself was like, "I've had a hard time keeping this place rented. I have heard some things. I don't believe too much. I haven't experienced anything myself." He never really stayed there. He said that there was a family that had passed away in that home. a mother and a father, and they had a daughter. They had passed away in that house. My aunt lived there for a number of years, but one thing that had happened to my aunt there, she was dating a man for a while, and they would go out. Sometimes he'd go out on his own. She'd stay home. One night, he had gone out with his friends. She stayed home. She had work. She was tired. She fell asleep in the living room on the couch late at night. She woke up to the sounds of somebody getting there. She saw the figure of who she thought was her boyfriend coming home from a night out with his friends. She said, I just glanced and told him, you're going to sit with me, and she gave him space at the end of the couch. She saw this figure sit down. Later on, at 3 a.m, there was knocking at the door. She gets up, opens the door. It's her boyfriend, just getting home and being dropped off by his friends. I know other people that things happen to in that house. My sister has a story. When she graduated high school, she took one of her high school friends to that house. My mother had gone to the casino with that aunt. This girl, she felt strange sitting in the living room. She kept glancing to her left where there was a small bathroom. The door looked like it was trying to open. She couldn't hear anything, but the light was on and there, it was open. Where she glanced back, the door was still open, but now there was a doll sitting on the sink that faced out of the bathroom. A lot of our family have known that things were happening at that house. I talked to one of my other cousins before I did this interview, and he was even like, yeah, everybody that's been there knows that there's something weird going on at this house. Everybody doesn't experience the same thing there, but everybody there says that they can feel something there watching you. You get this feeling as if something's waiting. It's waiting to do something to you. After that happened to me, I would feel uneasy in there. Years ago, I remember trying looking it up. The internet, probably 20 years ago when I was 19, I never really found anything. I know when I looked up the house, I know this house gets rented quite often because it's not a very nice house. It's super tiny. It almost looks like a studio with an extra room. I don't think people stay that long. My aunt was one of those people. She was older. She believes in God and everything. And so where she's like, well, I'll just pray. Things will leave me alone. But she didn't want to stay there after a while. She felt like something was trying to be on top of her, hold her down. She needed a struggle, and she got up, caught her breath, and stuff like that. I'd heard stuff like that from that house. I remember seeing an old house being remodeled, our neighbor's house. There would always be stories about this house being haunted. They would rent it. I never saw anything myself. What made me believe, I think, if at all, maybe people do sense things, is the neighbors would always say this little house was haunted. It shared the property line with our house. The day they were remodeling it, I'm probably like in the 6th grade, and I'm being nosy. I'm out there. All of a sudden, I see that one of the contractor guys, he's like, hey, everybody stop. Go call the owner because we need to figure something out. And they're telling me to go away. I'm like, no, I'm on my property. You need to tell me to go away. Under the house, because I'd been in that house, they had a cement floor. They had to redo it because they had cracked. When they lifted up the cement, I'm standing there. When they lifted up the cement, there was a human skeleton. It still had clothes on, a flannel shirt and jeans. I remember clearly. I saw construction workers pick up the bones, throw it in the garbage, and continue working. The girls that lived in there, they would see things upstairs and hear sound. I don't know if maybe that has something to do with that, but that's what I saw at that home. When you're a kid, you don't think about these things. But as an adult, I can remember, because it was such a big deal. Like, I was like, oh my God, they found a dead person. But when I think back on what they were doing at that house, when I tell you they found him under the cement, the foundation, they didn't dig. He was in between the poured cement and the dirt. It wasn't like a old burial site or anything. If you picked up a broken piece of cement on the street, and it was like right there. I remember seeing hair. It was old and bunched up, almost a red bronzish color, like bronze. That's what I saw. So it was like the skeleton that still, it had hair there. It had a flannel shirt on, obviously all beat up and the colors faded. But the jeans, that's, I guess, I don't know. I remember seeing the jeans. You think stuff like that would fall apart. They had holes in it, but it was still pretty intact. I remember him reaching for the leg. I had jeans on, but when he pulled the bones that you have in your waist area, you can see them separate. The long leg bone was still in the pants, and then they had to pick up the bones individually and throw them away. I remember looking up that, but later as an adult, I didn't know when that house was built, even where to start looking, to even think anything. But how many more people are under cement slabs somewhere? This house was on a corner lot. My aunt owned this property. These were older neighborhoods in Fresno, where you had more land. At some point, my aunt, or whoever owned the house before her, they had built a small studio apartment right behind her house. And to the right, they built a 2-story, 2-bedroom. It was shaped like a little square. They had built that there. One of my other aunts was staying in the house right behind her, and they were renting the 2-story one. The reason why they had lifted the floor was because apparently the foundation of the house wasn't sitting right anymore. There was cracks on the walls. The house was shifting, I guess. They had to re-pour the cement on the base floor of the house, rip up the old stuff, and throw it away, and then pour new cement. I remember in their living room, right there where they'd sit or watch TV all the time, was where that crack was, and that's where the body was, under that crack. The foundation cracked where that dead body was.